Whether or not Islamophobia is not a pejorative and denigrating term. I've never heard a Muslim use that to describe himself or herself, and I think it's an inappropriate and unfair, as I understand it. So we'll wait to the question and answer section, please. Okay. All right, at this time we're honored to have as our presenter a professor of religious studies from San Diego State University, Dr. Khalil Muhammad. Please.
Pardon?
Let's turn the monitor off. So it will blind you. You don't need another
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, Shabbat Shalom. Namaste, and if I missed any, well, hey. My name is Khalil Muhammad, as you heard. I pronounce it Muhammad because I was born in Saudi Arabia. And I feel completely out of place here. Because normally, I speak at predominantly Jewish organizations, Christian organizations, and usually the Muslims are up in arms against me. I don't give a hell who's up in arms against me. So tonight I came in and I saw this outside. Sharia is hate. So for the people who I argue with about, I'll put it to the front. Sharia is hate. Because a lot of the times, you see, my argument against traditional Islam is that a lot of this Sharia is hate. Now, the previous commentator said, and he admittedly, and I thank him for saying so, is that he's not a scholar, but he has been involved in mapping Sharia. You don't have to be an Islamic scholar, but if you have mapped Sharia, you know that certain aspects of Maliki law, Hanafi law, Shafi'i, Hanbali, Zaidi, the law is horrible. So I'll ask some, I don't like to make this a one-sided exchange of information. After all, I'm a professor. And one of the trademarks of professors is that they can be intensely boring. So I try to make it a two-way exchange. I know Tom. He and I have broken bread together. And I respect him. I would like to think that Tom respects me, so I'll ask Tom a very simple question. I'm not putting him in the spot. But please, do you see me as a radical Muslim?
No.
Thanks, Tom. That's nice to know. We can have coffee again.
Confused, not right.
Fair enough. I am confused. By the way, he and I didn't plan this exchange. God is my witness, and he'll say the same things. He's an evangelical. He's swear by God. It is true, he didn't plan this. But when he said confused, let me tell you how confused I am.
Microphone, please.
Let me tell you how confused I am. I studied in Saudi Arabia. So I am a scholar of Sharia. I studied in the West. I am a scholar of Western views of Sharia. I did my master's degree in Judaism and Islam. So I like to think I have a graduate command of Judaism. I was brought up in a Christian school. Sometimes I'm confused as to whether I'm a Christian or not. And it seems that every schmuck at this table tonight, I say that for all of us, has had security clearance. So we have some common denominators tonight about having security clearance, except mine was in the Canadian Army. The difference between a Canadian soldier and an American soldier, in case you didn't know it, is that when we discharge our short bursts, we stop at 3 rounds. 3 rounds. Next time you're in the battlefield and you're listening to the short bursts, you'll know the Americans, you people like spending money. Come to Canada. Our economy is not as bad. 3 bullets. Da-da-da, da-da-da. My youngest daughter, I'm taking time to tell you certain things. Because as I said, I feel out of place here. I don't want to take sides with anything, because I oppose certain aspects of Sharia. My youngest daughter's name is Hannah. It's not Hanan. It's not Rihanna. It's Hannah. Named after the mother of Samuel in the Hebrew Bible. My second daughter's name is Safiya. I named my daughter Safiya because then I was studying Jewish studies. And when I studied the character of Safiya, the Jewish woman, I did not want my daughter to have any other name. So yes, I am confused. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it because you see, tonight, Tom spoke about something about faith and philosophy. And I agree with Tom too. This is where we agree a lot on things. But there's a disconnect. Because when you go home or if you have time at the library, I want you to look at a film. Not Obsession, but a film called The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. You see, no one of us has seen God. I'd like my ex-wife to think that she did, but she called me a devil instead. No one of us has seen God. No one of us can absolutely, beyond the shadow of philosophical doubt, establish the presence of a God. I know some of you religionists, whatever bloody religion you belong to, will tell me there is. Sorry, Reverend, for using bloody. I'll tell you there is a God, but we cannot prove it beyond the shadow of philosophical, rational doubt, which is why you have something called faith. If it were not for faith, there would be nothing in the power of religion. Whether you're a Christian, whether you are a Baha'i, a Jew, a Muslim, radical or not, it is faith that dictates who you are. Now, I talked about the Sharia business, and Paul, if you excuse me, I do talk about Maliki law and Hanbali law, which in the West we are told is particularly severe. There's the Ismaili law and Sufi law. So Islamic law runs the gamut, from very generous and gentle and humane to very harsh. Listen to this. There are no more new worlds. The lands of the earth are limited and will soon be taken. The time is coming when the world will enter upon a new stage of its history. The final battle for which Muslims are being schooled. Then this Arab race of unequaled energy, with all the majesty of numbers and the might of wealth behind it, the representative of the largest, purest Islam, the highest civilization, having developed peculiarly aggressive traits, calculated to impress its institutions upon humankind, will conquer the earth. If I do not read this wrongly, this powerful group of people will move down Africa, Asia, Central Asia, upon the islands of the sea and beyond. Can anyone doubt that the result of this competition will be the survival of the best? Nothing can save the infidels but ready and pliant assimilation. The contest is not one of arms, but of truth and civilization. Paul, you said you don't have a problem with scholars on Islam. Do you think that came from a scholar or a run-of-the-mill imam? The quote that I just made, do you think that came from an Islamic scholar or just some run-of-the-mill renegade?
Christian.
Pardon?
Was a Christian.
Pardon?
I wasn't.
Pardon?
I don't know what the
The reason I made the quote, you see, we talk about fair. And Paul answered my question rightly. Because you see, that quote, with some minor changes, comes from a book called Our Country, written in 1885 by Joseph Storm. Manifest Destiny was his stuff. And so the quote actually reads, "Then this race of unequaled energy, no, the time is coming when the world will enter upon a new stage of its history, the final competition of races for which the Anglo-Saxon is being schooled. Then this race of unequaled energy, with all the majesty of numbers and the might of wealth behind it, the representative, let us hope, of the largest liberty, the purest Christianity, the highest civilization, having developed peculiarly aggressive traits calculated to impress its institutions upon mankind, will spread itself over the earth. If I read not amiss, this powerful race will move down upon Mexico, down upon Central and South America, out upon the islands of the sea, over upon Africa and beyond. And can anyone doubt that the result of this competition of races will be the survival of the fittest? Nothing can save the inferior race but a ready and pliant assimilation." You can check it out. The book, as I said, is called Our Country, written by an evangelist, minister, Protestant minister, Joseph Storm, in 1885. And the reason I bring that up, you see, we talk about hate. And who is spreading hate? Well, tonight when I walked in here, I heard, "This is Islam." And I saw this Sharia's hate stuff. And I had to ask myself, damn, I've spoken at several Jewish things, Christian things. I've never seen Muslims outside. Maybe there have been. I have never seen any. Tom talked about the law of non-contradiction and the fitting of facts. Well, let's look at this thing. We were being presented, you are the jury. The first time I came to Florida, I made a very bad joke. Luckily, most of you here are not white people tonight. First time I sat in front of a group of all white people, and I said to them, the only time a colored man puts on a collar and tie is when he's going up for his parole hearing. They didn't laugh. Sharia law. Now if you see, logic dictates that before you judge upon something, you read it first and study it first, objectively, without any input from anyone. And then you make your judgment. But if I am bringing someone, I'm bringing home a girl for my mom to look at, because us stupid Muslims, we have our mom tell us who to marry, most of the time. And before that girl even gets to my mom, the neighbor says, you know, that Rebecca, I'm confused enough to want to marry a Jewish girl. You know that Rebecca, R-E-B-E-K-A-H, she is a real nasty virago. She sleeps with all the men in the village. She doesn't cook good curry. Yeah, because we're described as a group of people who have strange hygienic habits and our food smells bad. Forget the fact that when you go to the Indian restaurants, it's all white people lined up. Sorry. I get angry because when I want to get Indian food, I gotta wait 2 hours in frickin' line, and you white people get it first. I'm angry and confused. See, the thing says Islam orders death for a Muslim and possible death for non-Muslim critics of Muhammad. And the reference given is Reliance of the Traveler. I think we're in the Vutra. You're from Saudi Arabia? Have you read this book, Reliance of the Traveler? I thought he was a sheikh, because you know only sheikhs wear certain clothes in Islam. And I asked the question pointedly, because this book, Reliance of the Traveler, has been translated by Noah Ha-Min Keller from a 10th century jurist. It's not normative reading in no Islamic university. It's become popular because it was translated. Noah Ha-Min Keller is a Shafi'ite. It's not the normative madhab. I point this out because the greatest thinker in Judaism is Maimonides. Some people might disagree with me, but for most, Maimonides is. You know what Maimonides said about Jesus and of Muhammad? One is a heretic and the other is a lunatic. should I, in a predominantly Christian country, try to show my money as being a Jesus hater? Just asking the question, because you are a jury. You have to deal with the evidence you have. Evidence that is not acceptable must be thrown out of court. Sharia is hate. Islam orders apostates to be killed. It refers to Quran 9, verses 11 to 12. I will give up Islam today if you show me where in chapter 9, verses 11 to 12, it says the apostate must be killed. I'm not saying that in Sharia law it doesn't say that. But when you give the Quran as your reference, and forget where the Muslims took this nonsense from, sorry for me taking the word nonsense, and you know the law of Pinhas or Phinehas, or the law in Leviticus of what is to be done with those who are not of the religion, you wonder. Islam orders unmarried fornicators to be whipped and adulterers to be stoned to death. Quran 24:2. I will give up my religion tonight if you prove to me the fornicators must be stoned to death with the Quran as your proof. So you see, we can say a lot of things. The problem is I speak Arabic. I am a jurist. I do not rely on translations. And I will be the first to admit that in aspects of Sharia law, it does say that. And I will ask, since we are quoting the Islamic scripture here, then let us not be discriminatory, but quote the true source of this law. Of who must kill the adulterer? I've read Leviticus, but I will not stand here to denigrate Judaism, because the answer to that is most Jews, or all Jews, do not call for that. So how dare I quote scripture? So let me ask you, we live in America. How many of you have heard John Dominion theology? Or Christian Reconstructionism, or Reconstructionist Christianity? How many of you know what Jim Hagee preaches? How many of you know what David Jeremiah preaches? And you tell me which is more hateful. You see, in the medieval times, the argument was whether Muhammad was a false prophet or not. And the Muslims could deal with that. The argument was never whether we worship the same God. Because the rabbis of yore and the Christian scholars of yore knew about Islam to a certain extent. Even the rabbis passed the rule stating that if a Jew could not find a place of worship, he could worship in a mosque, because we are monotheists. But now it is said we worship the one God. So you tell me who preaches more hate. Jesus said, yeah, I'm confused. You see, I can jump between Bible, Quran. I'm almost Rastafari, but I don't want my wife to know, because in Rastafari, you smoke that shit. You see, there's a book called Psychology of Religion, Psychology of War. And Lawrence LeSean writes, Why We Love War. And he comes up with two terms. One is called the mythic perception. What is the mythic perception? The mythic perception is something that has nothing to do with your sensory perceptions. The mythic perception is the concept that your enemy is so satanic and so evil that he can do no right. If he helps you, he has gone against his tradition because he is inherently evil. The contradiction to that is what you call the Teflon factor. So when we do something that is wrong, when we kill the enemy, and when we kill civilians, we have made collateral damage. Or the enemy was using the civilians as cover. But who the hell cares? I asked Tom tonight if he considered me a radical Muslim. He said no. Here's the problem that obsession does. You see, obsession says that it starts off, and it has a very nice disclaimer. It's not about Islam in general, but just about a few radical Muslims. But you see, Tom has on his website a letter that says he thinks, you know, he's been set up tonight. And that the radicals, the Islamists are going to be there. The Islamists are going to be there. So for supporters of obsession who come, the radicals are here. There is no distinguishing feature between the radicals and the moderates. We are all a bunch of terrorists, or radicals, or whatever. And that is the same thing that happened last week, you see. Imam Muhammad, apparently, with some Florida House representative, was asked. He asked the representative, apparently, I was not there, I'm going to third what they would call in court hearsay evidence. Happily, he is here, so Judge Judy can interview him if she wants. He asked the House representative, what about the innocent Muslims? And the man said, I don't care. And that is the problem with obsession. I don't care. It does not distinguish. It does not contextualize. And so we are left. Who are the radical Muslims? You don't know who are the radical Muslims. This theology of hate that is being preached. The theology of hate that's being preached. Well, Islam has its tradition of nonsense towards the end of time. But you see, the nonsense about hate talks about the coming of last days in Revelation when everyone but Christians must be killed. That is hateful. Jesus said, take the mote out of your own eye. Take the love out of your own eye before you remove the mote from your brothers. Before you support something like obsession, I think you should purify your own thing. So if you're a good Christian, purify Christianity. If you're a good Jew, purify Judaism. We Muslims, we'll deal with our own. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will ask the members of the panel to come back, and also if our technical person could raise the screen, please. For 1 minute, okay.